And today, well, we're going to be discussing a number of news items today. Well, the first one, what we're going to be looking at is, well, essentially, we're going to be looking at a tree, a 3D printed tree. But so what I've been, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been kind of looking very much into these kind of tabletop games and innovations in games and stuff like this. And I caught an article by a local news station in the US about Devin Montes's Make Anything YouTube channel and the Tippy tree. The Tippy tree is literally a Tippy tree. And the idea is to make a 3D print. And then based on that 3D print, you have a board game kind of thing or tabletop game. That's kind of Jenga-ish, I guess, where you would then take turns in a three-dimensional space, placing, let's say, 3D printed leaves on top of that tree. And you would then build that tree until part of it collapses. Now, this is, of course, a fun idea. But what I found particularly notable about this is the fact that this thing was developed 2 years ago by Devin. So 2 years ago, he developed this and put this online on his channel. And now only this station discovered it. So I started thinking of like, okay, does this mean that designers and people who do like kind of open source inventions and collaborations have kind of is there a perennial or kind of residuals approach where they can invent something in 1 year and maybe benefit from it 5 to 10 years in the future? And what's the business model here? Does Devin get paid for his videos? And does he live from that and then he gives the world free games? Or indeed, does he charge for the files? Or does he work in conjunction with people who provide and 3D print these things once people order them? Because of course the idea is to download and print this game yourself. Now we can do this, but most people on the planet cannot. So indeed, there's still a couple of like links in the chain missing for people to be able to commercialize something like this. And the reason I keep coming back to this, and this is an important thing, is the fact that if we can find a business model for somebody like Devin to make money continually inventing games, right? Devin does lots of stuff, right? But imagine he was just only inventing games week in, week out. And he had a Patreon, or he could sell the files, or he could sell prints once people, in conjunction with the service bureau, once people order them. Then we'd have many more of these people inventing these things. And at one point, we'd have a multi-million-dollar game coming out of this. So something as simple as a tabletop game that we kind of think is kind of a hobby thing for 3D printing could become one of the biggest 3D printing applications. But we're still missing this final link in either distributing this idea or commercializing this idea or something. And that's, to me, this is a really major truth point. If we really are an invention technology where we can really compress time and quickly invent things, then shouldn't we surely at one point have success with something that is an invented kind of fickle good? And that's why I'm quite interested in these kinds of developments. And the next thing is from Litos. Litos is the slurry SLA. Well, now they have 3 different technologies for developing ceramics, essentially. One of them is LCM, and they came up with a new blue. I'm still not entirely sure why it's blue, by the way. Somebody needs to explain that to me. New blue lithium bone HA480 material for their LCM process. This is a bone graft material, and the company hopes that it will be used for individualized 3D printed bone grafts. It's made out of hydroxyapatite. It's a bone kind of, well, it's a material used in bone as well. And it improves over the previous material. It's got better wall thicknesses, up to 10 millimeters. There's a better depth of cure, there's a better level of details, and a longer shelf life. And the company hopes that more and more people will commercialize this for like actually live patient bone grafts. Now, at the moment, it's more likely to end up in researchers' hands. But going forward, we should be mindful of these materials because there's an awful lot of entrepreneurial activity in 3D printing titanium for orthopedics. But Ossiform and a couple of other companies like Litos are trying to work on 3D printed bone. Now, we're very far away from this because it's actually really difficult to make something that has all the properties of 3D printed bone and that has similar materials at the same time that can withstand the pressure and be as elastic and as strong and tough. Bone is actually really fantastically engineered material. And we're not there yet. But we should always realize, of course, that developments from Litos should be followed because at one point, maybe they can replace all this orthopedic activity that is centered around titanium because it's, of course, much more closer to what the real thing is if we use, materials that are very, very close to the ones we use in the body. So that's why it's interesting. The next news is, well, India is deeper interested in 3D printing. This is something that's fascinated me. So for a couple of years ago, there was very little going on in 3D printing in India. Now, we then heard that their space program may be using additive manufacturing 3D printing in some things. We saw the emergence of Skyroot Aerospace, which is a startup that uses 3D printing. We saw the emergence of some 3D printing startups, and it looks like India is becoming kind of an awakening giant. The gentleman in front of you is called K.T. Rama Rao, and he is the Minister for Municipal Administration, Urban Development, Industries, Commerce, and IT of Telangana. Telangana is a state of India, which includes Hyderabad. It's the 12th most popular state in India, but it punches way above its weight in terms of tech and manufacturing and defense and all these areas. Now, what I found, the reason why I'm talking to you about this is a state minister who's trying to propel his province or state onto the world stage in 3D printing. And what he said, that there was a show called Additive Manufacturing Technology, AmTech, in Hyderabad itself. And he went on stage and he said that he wants to make his state the center for AM. He wants to use the aerospace, defense, and medical equipment sectors that are there and leverage them into producing parts with the new 3D printing technology. He also talked about Osmania University, which has the National Center for Additive Manufacturing attached to it. And he wants to stimulate government agencies to use and promote 3D printing, including 3D printing construction. This is all part, of course, of this Made in India approach. We've referred to this a couple of times already, and it keeps coming back that India is a large country. It's a country that has a lot of like IT industry, but not a really, really big manufacturing center, globally compared to like, companies like countries like Japan and Korea and China, right? And it wants to grow this sector, and it also wants to become more self-reliant in military and space and all these things. It wants to be more of a player in determining its own future. So this Made in India kind of approach really plays into all these factors in growing India and making it more technologically advanced and making it more independent, more able to decide its own future, and just in order to also kind of get more manufacturing jobs and more manufacturing growth happening in the country. So we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurial activity now and a lot of things happening. I thought it was notable that we're getting a state level minister now saying, look, this Made in India thing is serious, and 3D printing is a technology that we as this state are going to really be latching on to. We're used to hearing this, but we're used to hearing this from like American and other ministers and people all over the place. But I like the fact that India is a sleeping giant that now is awakening for 3D printing and really open for business more in the 3D printing thing. So I think that would be really very exciting. And we're also seeing the same happening, by the way, in Japan. So Japan and India, both quite late starters, are seeing a lot of entrepreneurial and government activity on additive manufacturing at the moment. So I'm really following that closely, and I suggest you do too. And thank you very much for your time. My name is Joris Peels, and this is another edition of 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Have a great day.